Welcome back. In this next dark story, we will be sharing the most haunted places in Indiana. Let's dive in and explore the dark history, demonic, supernatural, and chilling mysteries in the state. Don't forget to like, share, and please subscribe. Share your experience in the comments. Indiana looks harmless when the sun is out. Cornfields roll beneath open skies. Small towns settle into silence after midnight. Old brick buildings sit beside country roads as if they have nothing left to confess. But beneath that quiet surface is another Indiana, an older, colder place shaped by disease, isolation, forgotten graves, psychiatric wards, poor farms, sealed rooms, and tragedies that were never completely buried. These are not amusement park ghost stories. These locations have documented histories of suffering, and the paranormal accounts surrounding them have endured because the witnesses keep describing the same impossible things. Voices speaking from empty hallways, footsteps that stop outside locked doors, shadows moving against the light, beds shaking beneath sleeping visitors, and invisible hands reaching from places where no living person is standing. Whether these experiences are ghosts, traumatic echoes, or something far more inhuman is impossible to prove. But when darkness falls across Indiana, there are buildings where the silence does not feel empty. It feels occupied. Let's start off with the Central State Hospital in Indianapolis. The asylum that buried its dead without names. Central State Hospital opened in Indianapolis in 1848, when mental illness was poorly understood, and institutional walls were expected to contain the suffering that society did not want to see. Over nearly a century and a half, its patient population swelled into the thousands. The grounds became a self-contained world of wards, laboratories, treatment buildings, tunnels, and burial areas, where unclaimed patients were placed into graves that gradually lost their markers. The surviving old pathology building is now preserved as the Indiana Medical History Museum. But its rooms still contain the unsettling evidence of its original purpose. An autopsy room, laboratories, an anatomical museum, and shelves of preserved specimens, many of them human brains organized by pathology. This was a place where the dead were studied after their names had already begun to disappear. Archaeological work has confirmed burial shafts in the hospital cemetery, and construction on the former grounds has even disturbed human remains. Central State is not terrifying because of an invented legend. It is terrifying because the earth itself has already answered the question of what lies beneath it. The haunting accounts are quieter than a horror movie and far more disturbing. Because of it, paranormal investigators have reported voices inside buildings where no one else was present. During one investigation, several people struggling with an old window reportedly heard an unseen voice calmly explain how to open it. Pull down from the top. Other accounts describe a childlike voice, footsteps in empty corridors, and human-shaped shadows that appear briefly before slipping behind doorways. The most frightening possibility is not that the hospital is inhabited by raging demons. It is that some of the dead may not understand that the institution ever closed. Imagine walking through the remains of an abandoned ward after midnight and hearing a voice behind you, not screaming, not threatening, but speaking gently like a patient who has been waiting for decades to be noticed. Then imagine turning around and realizing the hallway is empty, except for a shadow at the far end that is slowly getting taller. Whispers Estate in Mitchell. The Victorian house that breathes in the dark. Whispers Estate stands on West Warren Street in Mitchell, Indiana, with the polished appearance of an ordinary Victorian home. But its history is layered with grief. The house dates to the 1890s and later became the home of Dr. John and Jessie Gibbons, who reportedly cared for adopted children while the doctor saw patients in rooms on the first floor. The most enduring tragedy involves their 10-year-old daughter, Rachel, according to the home's history and local reporting. She was badly burned after a fire began in the front parlor around Christmas and died 2 days later in an upstairs bedroom. Burn marks are still said to remain on a pocket door near the parlor. Other accounts associated with the house include the death of an infant named Elizabeth and Jessie Gibbons, dying after illness in the same upstairs bedroom. The result is a home where each floor seems to hold a different kind of mourning. The parlor, where the fire began, the bedroom where breathing stopped, the staircase between them, and the doctor's rooms below where strangers once arrived seeking relief from pain. Visitors do not merely claim to see apparitions at Whispers Estate. They describe the house behaving as though it is alive. People report voices whispering directly into their ears, small footsteps racing through empty rooms, doors slamming, heavy stomping in the halls, strange smells, growling sounds, and unseen forces pushing or touching them. One reported incident involved visitors leaving a doll in Rachel's bedroom, only to hear something tumble downstairs and discover the doll below with a scorched appearance and the smell of fresh burning. The house has also become associated with a dark shadow presence, sometimes called Big Black, a mass reportedly seen in the doctor's rooms and elsewhere inside the home. It is impossible to prove what any visitor encountered, but the most unsettling detail is the name of the property itself. It was not named for a scream. It was named for the whispers. Because according to the people who have stood alone inside that house after midnight, whatever lives there does not always need to raise its voice. Sometimes it leans close enough for you to feel its breath, and then it says something meant only for you. The Indiana State Sanatorium in Rockville. The hospital where the coughing never stopped. The Indiana State Sanatorium near Rockville was built in the early 1900s as a tuberculosis hospital, a sprawling medical complex surrounded by rural land. Before effective modern treatments, tuberculosis slowly consumed the lungs of its victims. Patients were brought to the sanatorium seeking rest, fresh air, and the hope of recovery. Some improved, others weakened behind the windows of long wards while the disease hollowed out their bodies one breath at a time. The property functioned almost like an isolated village, with residential buildings, service areas, a power plant, and tunnels connecting parts of the campus. After the tuberculosis era ended, the site was repurposed for other forms of care, including a nursing home and private mental health facility. Patients were ultimately relocated when the later healthcare center closed in 2012. Beds, equipment, papers, and fragments of ordinary life remained behind, creating the sickening impression that the building was evacuated before the rooms understood that everyone was gone. The sanatorium's paranormal reputation is built around the sounds that still seem to linger in its corridors. Visitors and ghost hunting groups report disembodied voices, doors opening and closing without assistance, unexplained knocks, footsteps climbing stairwells, shadow figures sliding across the ends of hallways, and poltergeist-like activity in the old laundry areas. Some accounts describe coughing and wheezing in the older wings, the strained, wet sound of lungs fighting for air in buildings where no patients remain. A female apparition has reportedly been seen near laundry and office spaces, while footsteps are often associated with the stairways of Adams Hall. The most disturbing mistake is to call its service tunnels a death tunnel, as though this were a legend imported from another hospital. Indiana State does not need that exaggeration. The real setting is frightening enough. Walk through one of those underground passages in darkness. Let your flashlight weaken and listen. At first, you may hear nothing but dripping water. Then a cough behind you, then another cough in front of you. And finally, between the two, the slow dragging sound of something sick and invisible moving closer. Now, this one is freaky. The Hannah House in Indianapolis. The mansion haunted by a story that refuses to die. Hannah House was built in Indianapolis in 1858 by Alexander Hannah, and its most famous ghost story has been repeated for decades according to the legend. The home served as a station on the Underground Railroad. A group of people fleeing enslavement supposedly sheltered in a cellar where an overturned oil lamp caused a fatal fire. The legend claims their bodies were secretly buried to prevent the discovery of the household's involvement. It is an emotionally powerful story, but historians have found no evidence confirming that Hannah House was an Underground Railroad stop, or that the alleged basement deaths occurred that matters. The horrors of slavery do not need to be embellished. The legend should not be presented as verified history, but correcting the record does not make Hannah House comfortable. It makes the haunting stranger. Because if the cellar tragedy did not happen, then the question becomes darker. What are visitors experiencing inside the mansion? And why has the house generated such persistent stories of unrest? People who have visited Hannah House have reported the scent of burning candles drifting from areas where no candles are lit. A foul odor near an upstairs bedroom, unexplained noises and apparitions moving through the halls. Accounts include a man in a black suit, a woman standing near an upstairs window, and the presence of an infant associated with an actual stillbirth in the family's history. The house is frightening, not because every story can be proven, but because its rooms seem to produce the sensation that something has been watching visitors repeat the legend for years. A basement does not need to contain hidden graves to feel wrong. A staircase does not need a documented death to make footsteps sound heavier after midnight. The most unsettling possibility is that the house has learned how to use the story. Perhaps it does not care whether the legend is true. Perhaps it has discovered that fear opens doors just as effectively as keys. And each time someone enters the cellar, expecting to hear choking voices in the dark, something else is already waiting there, listening to them breathe.
And lastly, the Randolph County Asylum in Winchester. The poor farm where the bells still ring. South of Winchester, along US Route 27, stands the Randolph County Asylum, also known as the Randolph County Infirmary. Its history reaches back to a poor farm established in the 1800s for people who were impoverished, elderly, sick, disabled, or without family support. Earlier buildings on the property suffered catastrophic problems. One burned, another deteriorated so badly that residents reportedly stuffed bedding into holes in the walls to block the weather. By the late 1890s, the basement had become contaminated by raw sewage after a broken drain pipe. The four-story structure that remains today was completed in 1899, partially above the foundation of an earlier asylum. According to the property's historical account, approximately 1,487 people called the facility home between 1899 and its closure in 2006, and roughly 500 deaths occurred there from causes including age, illness, suicide, and murder. Residents whose bodies were not claimed by relatives were buried on the grounds in an unmarked cemetery, placed into simple wooden boxes and lowered into Indiana soil without the permanence of a name carved into stone. The paranormal reports surrounding Randolph County Asylum are among the most disturbing in the state, because they do not describe one ghost. They describe a building crowded with them. Visitors report shadow figures crossing doorways, doors slamming in empty rooms, voices near the barred cell areas, screams and moans from the basement, and the sensation of invisible hands grabbing at the body. The asylum has become associated with stories of a woman named Ida haunting a basement cell, a former resident named Doris lingering near a room filled with dolls, an unseen judge believed to occupy the attic, and toys moving without human contact. Some visitors describe something stranger than a human spirit, a low, fast-moving presence sometimes called a creeper, a shape that reportedly rushes through the darkness with an unnatural speed. Imagine reaching the attic alone and finding a child's tricycle standing motionless in the beam of your flashlight. Then imagine hearing the old asylum bell ring somewhere below you. Once, twice, 3 times. The tricycle begins to roll by itself. The attic door closes behind you. And from the stairwell, something starts climbing toward you on all 4s. Too quickly, too quietly, and with far too many footsteps to be human.
Thank you for your continued support. Please subscribe, like, and share. Your support helps motivate us to keep bringing you more true haunted stories, terrifying legends, and chilling paranormal mysteries.